exciting always to talk about every aspect of data center, including supply chain, very important constituent of building and operating data centers. So three of the stalwarts of supply chain here, the third one is awaited, two are already here. And every time we talk about data centers now, we can't even think about data center without talking about AI. That's what comes to mind and discussion first as a first point. So when we talk about AI, my question to both of you, you can choose your order of answer. How do you think we are ready to handle this transition? Because hi Sudhir, welcome. So we have the third powerful guy now. So Sudhir, we were saying the minute you speak about data center, today it is impossible to think about data center without thinking of AI, right? And like Venkat said, nobody really knows what it is. We are all guessing, we are all making our best guesses, we are preparing ourselves for that changes as best as possible, but only time will unfold what it is actually. So given that uncertainty, given that this change is so fresh, so new, young, how do you feel that we are ready to handle this change? Is there a lot to learn yet? Is there a lot of unknown yet? How do you see India being ready for AI data centers compared to maybe what you see in some other countries?
I will take this question. So, if you see that today India is at the right spot of the data center, we are growing very fast with 30% CAGR. At the same time, in the environment, we have support for semiconductor industry. At the same time, in the manufacturing. But in the short term, we have some supply chain resiliency challenges. For example, if you see semiconductor, GPUs, this is controlled by only few parties, few suppliers in the world. And there can be sanction to any country for that. So there are challenges in the short term to spin off your AI workload on an immediate basis. You have to wait for some time. Then you have another challenge which is towards uploading technology. Now, if you see this AI workload is quite changing sharply. It is now reaching to the capacity of say 300 kilowatt capacity of racks. Now, having different technologies for this workload, RSTX, your DLC system, immersive cooling, and the data center should be resilient to adopt these technologies. As the data center capacity is increasing, you have another challenge, which is to the power, good quality of power availability. In good quality of power can be in terms of voltage, in terms of harmonics. And when you don't have that good quality power, you have to build resiliency in your system. Another challenge, because there are a lot of things into this, it is can be the sphere management, because SLAs are very strict into this. So in the short term, I see there are a lot of challenges. But in the long term, and being the government support, maybe after 18 months or so, 24 months, it can be better.
So would you like to reflect on this?
I'll add on to this. Are we ready? I will not say no. But we will have to go a long way to be where the other matured markets are. It starts with the first is how the government is actually playing their part in terms of making it more robust. Are we there? We are actually moving towards it. The power is the other aspect. Are we still looking at the way that we wanted to have the power availability that we will have? We are still looking at it. So my sense is we will be moving towards it in next 2 years' time. I think we will be ready. But it is a journey. It is a long-term journey that we will have to actually start looking at it. Whether it is from the power and the related, it is the OEMs who has to actually ramp up their capacities, infrastructures in India. We are still dependent too much on the overseas procurement. Maybe we may be placing direct orders in India, but in turn, the OEMs are dependent on overseas procurement. Now with the global disruptions happening, it's actually creating an interruption in the supply chains that we are looking at. So in a nutshell, if I summarize, the answer is no, but we are still working towards it in terms of that we will be very soon AI ready as the mature markets are.
Great, thanks for that.
Okay. So I would agree with both my panelists that yes, it has to be a long-term journey. Short-term solutions are not available. I would also reflect on the past. In the past 3 years, in 2022, we were just thinking about when will AI come. And today, after 3 years, there is everything about AI and the infrastructures that has to be built to cater to it. And it's not just India which is coping up with this. It's all the mature markets as well. It's a discovery. However, it has to be expedited, it has to be accelerated to completely build the infrastructure, not just being dependent on the few regions to get the semiconductors or the GPU racks that we really want. And at the same time, it has to cope up with the electrons and the energy that is required at a breakneck speed. Because we continue to hear announcements of the gigawatts of capacity that needs to be added in the next few years itself. So it all has to happen inclusively with the industry, with down the line supply chain, as well as upstream with the relevant stakeholders out there. And there is no other choice. Either you participate in this race or you completely be left out. So there is no choice other than to be ready.
True, well said. And Abhinav, would you like to also throw light on what you feel about, let's say, resilience part of it, the power volatility? There are some concern areas or blind spots about, let's say, transmission. Sudhir and Achal, we also are talking about future where power will be produced on campus, nuclear and all that. So would you like to cover any of those aspects?
Yeah, sure. I would not go into depth of nuclear because as a country we still need to adopt a lot to make that happen first. But generating captive power on site, systems needs to be efficient, and these are capacities we are talking about in gigawatts. To generate that kind of capacity, I'm not sure how much would we be able to do it in the regions that we are concentrating, which are the major metros at this point of time, which becomes a challenge. But the power and distribution needs to start. We need to start investing in it now to expand. And whatever needs to be done, it has to be done in a future-ready way. Any transmission lines that we are putting in, so the poles for those, whichever structure you pick, has to be in a way that it is able to cater for additional transmission lines to be conducted at a later date. Your substations that we build on site needs to have enough space to have additional transformers as and when they are required. So every part of the infrastructure, be it outside the DC building or within the DC building, needs to be ready with fungibility so that it can be upscaled at a time when we require it. Retrofitting is possible, but it takes more time and efforts, both in terms of cost and the time, which then affects the time to market.
Sure. So Sudhir, in case you want to add anything to that, plus how do you see the regional readiness of India? India being a very diversified country, possibly we are like 10 other countries if you look at several others, right? In terms of diversity, geography, everything. We have data center policies which are different in different states. In a way, as I always say, that it is good that all the states are fighting in spirit because you get the best from all. But that also exposes you to another challenge that every data center policy of each state is slightly different. So what we work here may not work there. Plus your readiness, we all say that data centers have to penetrate, they have to go away from metros. So how do you see readiness of logistics, the physical infra from that point?
A very, very good question that you have picked up. If you see the geography of the data centers that are coming up is more concentrated around Mumbai, Chennai, to an extent now Bangalore or Pune that we are looking at. Right? And Hyderabad now to the next new entrant. Now what are the factors that are
looking at you till you name Hyderabad?
Of course now Hyderabad is the new entrant, that's why I said that. So what are the factors? The first is the land availability, right? The second is the power availability, and not just availability, but the stability of the power, right? And the third is how is your, now I will look at it from a supply chain standpoint as well. How is your partner ecosystem there who actually can help you deliver a data center that you have? And most of them, if you see, if everything is placed in Mumbai and Pune region, then actually the partners have invested heavily in terms of their manufacturing capacities who can deliver you on the short notice. Today, one of the challenges is in terms of how do you actually do a turnaround as fast as possible, because the expectation is that we will have to be ready as of yesterday. Right? So that's what we are looking at it. My sense is these 5-6 places will keep growing with, again, backed with the incentives that the governments are trying to push from their end. So these are a couple of things that I believe is the drivers around that big city. And one of the key things which I may not want to miss is the availability of the skilled resources. Because that's becoming one of the challenges, and that's what you will only figure it out within these limited geographies there.
Very right. You touched upon this point, which is very important. When we often talk about supply chain, most of the times we consider physical goods, but even manpower is a very critical supply chain. And till the time we understand how much manpower of what abilities, what skill set we require, and start farming and harvesting the manpower, we will keep poaching. And till the time we are only poaching, we are ourselves as a whole industry, we are creating a bottleneck for ourselves. So, right. If I also consider myself having grown from supply chain side, I think why, what and how has transformed. What you do, how you do, why you do is completely changing with the whole landscape of data center. Would you like to cover that aspect? How you, what are your procurement strategies? How they have to change? Why do you do what you do?
If you see today, if you recall 2020 when COVID happened, it taught us that if you are depending on a particular location or on a particular supplier, how it can hurt you, your operations, your business continuity. And that is where, when the China was first locked down in the world, we realized that everything was stopped. And then the world thought that it is China plus one strategy. And that is where supply chain resiliency comes into the picture and our strategies come into the picture. We have to be multi-vendor, multi-geography, so that our supply chain resiliency is built. We should, what should be done is that we should combine all the requirements of multi-location, all the sites at all the places, and we should allocate it to the multi-vendors, and then we should supply that item wherever it is needed, so that we can continue our business and we can deliver on time.
Both of you, what, how, why, do you want to talk about how it has changed or should change?
I have seen this data center journey for last more than a decade now. Okay? And I can tell you with the experiences that I have seen through the supply chain and with the transition into the new execution role, I can tell you the procurement strategies have evolved significantly. And why to that extent is because there are multiple factors to it. Number one, the growth trajectory that it has taken and the surge in the demand that it is. So the traditional method of procurements will not help drive this. The international global market volatility that is happening, the conflicts that are happening at different geographies is pushing us to look at our strategies very, very differently. Now, what we are doing is in terms of pre-COVID, in fact, COVID has actually given us a lot of learnings in terms of how we are actually looking at our strategies. Right? So, pre-COVID, we had been single partner, single vendor strategies. We are very comfortable. The demand was low. We were comfortable in that sense. But everything has been disrupted after this. So, as my friend said, multi-partner strategies, multi-geography strategies, not depending on only one region, maybe on the eastern side of our geographies. Localization, how do we increase the localization to an extent? Because the cost pressure also is putting one of the constraints in terms of how we deliver, because there's too much of competition now, right? So all of this is actually pushing us looking at things very differently, how we have been actually looking at it.
Okay. I would look at it other than what both of them have said, slightly different view. India itself is a multi-regional country, so we cannot have a single approach for all the regions or all the cities that we have. It has to be multi-domestic. You have to really evaluate which vendor or which supplier, contractor is strong in which area, what are their sphere of influences, understand their weaknesses and strength. It has to be a partnership approach with everyone, and whoever responds needs to be continued forward and grown further. And resources is critical for everyone, and in our partner strategy, mostly what we see, it's we cannot be extractive. We have to be inclusive of the entire value chain itself. Cash flow becomes a huge impact. So it cannot be just one partner or two partners or 10 partners per se. We have to have the right pick per region and see who we want to work with, and then work with them down the stream as well and make them work. One of the biggest challenges that you guys just mentioned is the skilled manpower as well. It is going to remain. It is going to continue. So what is it that we can do beyond that? How can we address it? So modularity is one question to it. But what I've seen so far is modular. The way we talk about it, are we ready? I do not see that out there in the market yet. We are talking about modularization within the data hall and the data center building itself. But it has gone way beyond that. If we talk about the more mature markets, we are talking about scaling, we are talking about containerized solution, the entire electrical room outside the building, having a DG bay itself, and then connecting and plugging and playing it. So that's the level that other regions are thinking about. We have just the models that they are retiring, we are talking about it now. So we are already behind the curve, and instead we should just do R&D and move forward in that, and yeah, that's what I want to mention.
Okay, so when you are doing it behind somebody, you are behind, but you also have an advantage because you have seen it being done by somebody else. Many times we know that India could bring 5G quickly because it did not have the bird. You know how the technology evolution is. So that aspect, plus what I will try and bring for, maybe all of you will feel excited to speak about it, is we know that whatever we did, let's say up to 23, 22, the time frame is reducing. The market is becoming more impatient. If you did a building of 30 megawatts, let's say in 2 years, today you are expected to do it in 1 year. Now fundamentally, a law of commerce says that if you do something in a lesser time, the cost goes up. But here, you are expected to do it in a shorter time, at a lesser cost, when your costs actually are going up, input costs. At the same time, there is a lot of change, which means you yourself are learning, there is a lot of unknown. And then you have to achieve everything together. So how do you, and supply chain becomes a very, very critical component to either achieve, make it or break it with all these variables. So how do you play that pivotal role to help your organization achieve what it wants to do?
You see, what I was mentioning earlier, it has to be a partnership approach and a continuous learning, and involve the contractors early, in the design phase itself, so that they can give the right inputs as well while we are designing, and work with them on the solutions that are being presented. And and what you mentioned is absolutely correct, that everyone is expecting the time to market to be shortened. So that's where we see that if you talk about in India, the matrix that everyone follows is the cost. So we need to have a hybrid approach to that, not just the cost. It needs to be, the time also adds to the cost, right? The number of manpower you will have, the cost will keep increasing by the day. So how do we move to a more innovative solutions of the modularity? That's one of the ways to do works off-site, and then bringing it in and plugging and playing it. That's one way we can reduce the cost factor. Other time to market also, if you spend less time on the site and more time outside, so that's how the parallel works can continue. So these are the many things that we can experiment. I'm not saying everything will be same, That's where multi-domestic approach, every region has its own strengths. We need to play to that. The matrix that we need to really follow is what are the per site or per colo building that we are doing, what is the man hours that we are spending in building it, or what are the man months we are spending in building it. So that's where market is holding us accountable, everyone, not just at cost but on time also now.
Great perspective. So Sudhir and Achal, connected to this, one more question to you is, while we are trying to cut cost, cut time, innovate, handle the unknown, how do you think standardization vis-a-vis customization is playing? Customers also want more customization, but they also want it fast. So if you standardize, you possibly can cut time, you possibly can cut cost, you can make supply chain and procurement more strategic if you have standardization, so all these benefits. But the more you standardize, the lesser is the opportunity you are leaving for your customer to customize. So how do you handle? They want customization rights also, and they want faster delivery also, they want it cheaper also.
I think here we can't say that standardize everything because market is very evolving, requirements are keep on changing. So standardization may not be a solution. If you see today that the solution is customization based on the customer requirement. What can be done is give the projections to your partners in advance so that they are fully prepared. They can line up their raw materials, they can line up their all other production things, and they can deliver you on time. So customization has to be done, but you have to be in advance, proactive in approach, and you have to give projections to your partners.
But before Sudhir start, if you are saying that standardization will not work, how will you give projections to your partners? How will they be? Because unless there is standardization, you can't do your forward contracts. You can't give them useful heads up. See, the heads up have to be useful. If you just tell them that, okay, I'm going to buy so many tons of fillers from you, it doesn't help.
So see, the point is standardization. When you take any product, it has certain raw materials. First thing is that to buy that raw material. For example, I give let's say the chillers. He has to buy some steel, he has to buy some copper, he has to buy some aluminum, he has to buy some components. If you give some projection, he can arrange the raw materials. Within that, so the point is within that product, there has to be some modularity, which the partner has to keep it in mind. So it is not a complete customization. It has to be a mix-up.
We can wrap up with your answers.
Okay. So, see, it's creating a balance between standardization and customization. We had a lot of standardization to an extent that we had single single specification of these high value capital equipments, and we have been running tenders, locking forward prices for years together. So to avoid running tenders time and again and shorting the time, because it's at the end of the day is the time. But you cannot get away with the problem that the customer will come up and say. But to that extent, what we have realized it's more focused towards the data center, all specific customization that we incorporate. If you see the high side, it generally remains the same. Now, one more thing that what we have looked at is that the templatization of the designs that have helped. You create a templatization between the hyperscalers versus retailers versus the enterprise, that has worked. And we have seen that this really works in terms of having a long-term contract with our partners, executing the projects at much faster speeds, because you don't have to innovate every time in terms of when you are actually getting when you are hitting onto the site. So I think it's just a balance between how to actually categorize these things and bring it to the business that works best for you.
I will add here one point just. I think you have to consider Asian Paint story, how Asian Paint has brought standardization and customization both at the same place in the beginning of the process. That we have to, that's the model which industry has to do.
Abhinav, would you like to say anything on this to wrap up?
See, customers will always ask us customization. while we have to standardize as an organization, right? So we have to pick and choose our priorities. Which portions could be standardized, should be done, and whatever left to the customers, mainly the data all over the server racks, that's where they want customization, right? But how the building or aesthetics or the ancillary systems support it, that's something where we can always drive the maximum standardization and leave room for further expansion and customization as and when it is required.
Right. We'll check if we have questions. If not, one last power sentence from each one of you. Yeah. Yes, please.
So we'll get the mic to you.
Hello. Yeah. Most supply chains are moving towards blockchain technology. Does our data center leaders think that data center supply chain will move towards blockchain technology? Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, see, blockchain technology will help to create your system very robust and in a very unique way. For example, through blockchain technology, you can create your, for purchase order, for example, you can create your systems automatically and with a unique number. So it will help to automate your process, it will help to streamline your things quickly.
Hello. So, do you think procuring GPU chips could be a constraint for constructing AI data centers in India? For example, we know that all the chips are currently coming from US and for all practical purposes NVIDIA. And with the introduction of AI Diffusion Act this year, which basically restricts the number of GPU chips that can be imported by a country like India, do you think that could be a challenge to India's AI race?
So the GPU chips definitely, as you mentioned, are in the high demand, and it is all the capacities for it are already blocked for the next months and year or two at least. So it is a challenge. However, be ready, as I said earlier, we have to act now and time our deployment and procurement strategies for the chips and the GPUs. Now, assuming that in next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, what is the capacity that we really require and want to deploy?